This is The Writing of God with Dr. Miles Jones.
Welcome to The Writing of God, the biblical timeline versus the mainstream academic orthodox chronology. This is probably the most important show we may ever teach. We're going to show you today how secularists in the education system will try and strip our children of their faith by showing them how the timeline of the Exodus is wrong. Therefore, the biblical history is inaccurate. And what does that say about the message of the Bible? Biblical archaeology has long been sliding into secularism. Even those researchers who are believers, most of them are minimalists. Minimalists meaning they believe the oldest parts of the Bible are based on myth and legend. Therefore, the Bible is not an accurate, actual record of history. So how could this happen? Aren't they interested in facts? Well, the way this happens is by consensus. Many fields establish consensus as if popularity of ideas is scientific truth. It is not truth. That's a well-known logical fallacy. But academic consensus is established by a show of hands, and once consensus has been established, the case is closed. That is why no further evidence need be considered by the academic establishment of the universities. Therefore, no peer-reviewed academic journal is likely to accept research challenging the mainstream view that the Exodus is a myth. And believe me, I've tried, folks. So how do they use this to attack the Bible? Well, historians will cherry pick verses from the Bible. They will interpret them in a way that violates the biblical timeline. Then they will declare the Bible is invalid. And here is the case in point. The Ramses Exodus theory. This is the Pharaoh that they claim was the Pharaoh of the Exodus. You've all seen the movie, right? How could Charlton Heston be wrong? Now there arose up a new Pharaoh in Egypt who did not know Joseph. Therefore they set over the Hebrews taskmasters to afflict them with burdens. And the Hebrews built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. Now this is Exodus 1:11. Now remember, yes, the Pharaohs kept their treasure in these cities, but this was their capital, where they ruled from, where everything was. And before Pharaoh, Ramses, the estate of Ramses, or the city of Ramses, and Pithom before him, it was called Avaris in Goshen. It was the royal city of Amenemhat III and his vizier Joseph, Zapanath-paneach in Hebrew. So remember this, Exodus 1:11 is the verse that supposedly proves that Ramses was the Pharaoh of the Exodus. His reign was in the 13th century BC. So the Exodus must have happened in the 13th century BC, not the 15th century as clearly expressed in the Bible chronology. Do you see the little bait and switch going on here? You have to look in the 13th century. You cannot look in the 15th century of the Bible chronology. And when you look in the 13th century, what do you find? Zero, zip, nada. There's no evidence of a conquest of the Promised Land going on in Israel in the 13th century BC. So therefore, the Bible must not be a valid history of the Exodus. Well, this is how that works. This is why that's a false argument. The royal city of Ramses in Exodus 1:11, you remember that verse? That's the critical verse. That is an anachronism. What is an anachronism? It is a later name that is better known, used in place of an earlier name that probably no one is aware of. Let's take an example. Julius Caesar crossed the English Channel in 50 AD to invade Britain. Well, I'm sorry, he didn't cross the English Channel. There was not an England until almost 1,000 years later, so there was no English Channel. Now, I don't care. I don't care what the Romans called the channel in Latin or what the Celts called it in their own tongue. The English Channel is fine. Just remember, this is an anachronism. It does not change the timeline. It doesn't change the timeline of Julius Caesar, and it does not change the timeline of the Bible. It's an anachronism. You're aware of it, and you adjust for it. It does not change the timeline. So following the passage in Exodus 1:11, the Israelites are oppressed for generations. Then Moses is born, he flees, and he returns at the age of 80 years old to free the Israelites from a Pharaoh Ramses that has got to be at least 200 years by now. This is an anachronism. It does not change the timeline of the Bible. François Champollion, he was the very brilliant linguist who cracked the code of the Rosetta Stone, which was written in 3 languages: Egyptian hieroglyphs, which nobody could read, Demotic, a cursive form of hieroglyphs, and Coptic, which is Egyptian written in Greek letters, basically, which we did know. So we're able to therefore translate the other 2. We're able to translate the original Hebrew hieroglyphs. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful part of history. Champollion did this. It was brilliant. But he did make a mistake. He wrongly equated Pharaoh Shishak with Pharaoh Shoshenk on the temple inscriptions at Karnak in 1829. That error remains the basis of historical dating of the Exodus to this very day. He read off all these names of cities in the Old Testament, and then he found one that caused huge excitement. Yehuda HaMalkut, which must mean Judah the kingdom. Well, it actually doesn't, but he thought so at the time. So he ascribed to Shoshenk the conquest of Jerusalem, like it says in the Bible. And then Shishak, king of Egypt, came in and conquered Jerusalem. That's in 2 Chronicles. So here was a key link to the Bible, he thought. At this time, they were still doing archaeology with a trowel in one hand and a Bible in the other. Now they completely discredit the Bible. Neither one well serves the purpose of truth. But this verse has been called the essential synchronism for dating Egyptian history. Shoshenk was the first ruler of the 22nd dynasty. So you line up the other dynasty up to the 19th, and you give the end date for the 19th dynasty, add the last 5 kings of the 19th dynasty after Shoshenk, add in the 66 years of Ramses' reign, and you get 1279, the start of Ramses' reign. Okay, well, Champollion's translation of Yehuda HaMalkut was wrong. It really meant Yad HaMalek, hand of the king, a military fortress near Megiddo. So Shoshenk did not conquer Jerusalem. He did not conquer Judah, where Jerusalem is located. So the Ramses Exodus theory is born and justified using Bible passages that completely contradict the biblical chronology of the Exodus. There's nothing wrong with the backdating methodology that they use, lining up the dynasties and counting back. What's wrong is the false starting place of equating Shoshenk with Shishak. That's what is in error. Ramses, an Egyptian, that's his Egyptian name. It's Real Shishak is his Egyptian name, which Shisha is his hypocrisicon, a short formal name for him. In Hebrew, that's Shishak. Shishak in the Bible is Ramses II, Ramses the Great, who was in the 10th century BC. This was the Shishak of the Bible. And this is not going out on a limb. This is well established by now by the work of David Rowe and others. The Shishak campaign was in 925 BC in the south. Jerusalem is there, around the Dead Sea, where Shoshenk's campaign was in the north. They didn't overlap at all, except for going through the city of Ajalon. Both of them went through there. So two different campaigns, two different pharaohs. Shoshenk is not Shishak. Stick around, we've got more for you on interpreting the biblical timeline correctly. What is the revelation of the Month Club? Well, let me tell you. The Hebrew Gospels are the most important biblical discovery since the Dead Sea Scrolls. It took 40 years for scholars to get those published and out to the public. If you're graduating high school, getting your first job, you would be in retirement before all the Dead Sea Scrolls were published. We cannot let that happen with the Hebrew Gospels. But to get them out there, we need your help. That's what the Revelation of the Month Club does. We translate these manuscripts. I was called to go and find the manuscripts of the Hebrew Gospels. At the time, some more than a decade ago, everyone was saying they don't exist. They never existed. We found dozens of the manuscripts, and now we have acquired them. I went to Israel, England, France, Spain, Italy, and now we have members all over the world searching out these manuscripts and getting them for us. And now, as a result of our work, they are starting to be translated. And we don't want you to have to wait. We want to send you chapters of the Hebrew Gospels as soon as they are translated. We want to bring it to your door. For a monthly donation, we will bring these into your home because you're the ones that are making it happen. So we want you to get a first look at everything. These are priceless manuscripts. We've spent untold $1,000 getting them. And the price of doing this and bringing this message to you on video is costly. So with your support, we can make this happen. So go to writingofgod.com right now and become a subscriber to the Revelation of the Month Club and find the Hebrew Gospels in your inbox tomorrow.
Will you seek the Lord about becoming a partner to bring the message of the Writing of God to more people? Send your gift to The Writing of God, P.O. Box 294027, Kerrville, Texas 78029, or online at thewritingofgod.com. That's The Writing of God, P.O. Box 294047, Kerrville, Texas 78029, or online at thewritingofgod.com.